known as Australia's #1 business growth strategist for profit increase and owner lifestyle improving specialties. And he's been recognised by Fox, NBC, CBS and the ABC. Hitesh has worked with over 3,500 businesses in Australia, America, the UK, Japan and Europe. He works with small to medium enterprises to improve their profits by up to a staggering 2,000%, whilst cutting working hours in half for the owner, so that they can enjoy an excellent lifestyle with plenty of time for family, fun and philanthropy. Hitesh is also Director of WOW Advisors and Business Accountants and Crystal Clear Bookkeeping, which offers an innovative approach to bookkeeping, helping to minimise tax whilst reducing bookkeeping costs. Please welcome Hitesh.
Thank you, Jenny. There is a strategy plan as to why I'm first, because finance is not exactly the most exciting topic to talk about. So Jenny has come up with a plan. I'm supposed to just keep you awake. Then Tamara and James come in and they kind of perk you up, and then Natasha blows you away at the end. So please, if you can, don't fall asleep, otherwise I get beaten up. So, all right. 3,500 businesses around the world is what I've worked with. But if we were to take 3.5 random businesses and took them together, what would we really find? You'll probably find that about 200 of those businesses are what I call really sweet. And what I mean by sweet, they've got everything in place, they're running really well, they're making a lot of money, everything's in the right place, and they're doing really well. Then we end up with about another 300 businesses which I call cool. They're not as good as the 200, but they're doing really well. They can do a bit of changes in here and there, but they're still making a lot of money. So that leaves us with 3,000 other businesses. But believe it or not, about 2,000 businesses will fail, close down, stop trading, or be unsuccessful. That leaves another 1,000. So what happens with them? The chances are they are in business, they might be doing okay, but life is a bit tough, business is tough, it's a bit struggling. And in reality, if they went out and worked for someone, they might actually earn more money. So the question really is what are the 500 doing that the 3,000 aren't doing? Now within the 500, you'll have someone who's like really good at sales and someone who's really good at marketing, and you'll have some really strong points. But I almost guarantee you that the 500, what they are doing with the other 3,000 aren't doing, is they concentrate on the figures. I have yet to meet a business owner, a successful business owner, and I've been doing this for 22 years, consistently making good money, good profits, who doesn't look at their figures. Now that's a staggering percent, it's 100%. So really, it's really important. And sometimes we are so engrossed in running the business and getting sales and doing all these things, we kind of ignored that. So let's take a business person, I don't know, let's make him a printer. He's in business and he goes and sees his accountant once a year and he looks at his figures. I can guarantee you that person will make less profit than if he looked at his figures once a quarter. Okay, and that's why there's a little bundle of dollars down there, because he's making a bit more money. But the person who looks at his figures once a quarter is likely to make less profit than anyone if he was to look at his figures once a month. Okay? It is that important. And I mean, when I mean look at figures, I don't mean a cursory look, oh, what happened this month, that's cool. I mean really look at the figures, really analyze and see what's happened. Okay, I do this with a lot of my clients now. We sit down once a month and we dissect the figures, literally dissect them. Okay, that's why there's 2 bundles of cash down there. All right, okay. So if I was to ask you a question, now some of you I know are in businesses, some are thinking of starting up, some might not be in business right now. if you're not in business, think of it on a personal level, but if you had to grade yourself as to how well you look at your figures, where would you grade yourself? Because if you're grading yourself anything less than a 5 or 6, the chances are you're probably not making as much as you could be. And spending literally an hour or two a month could be the difference between you making some money and you making a lot of money. Okay? All right. One of the things that I put this slide up quite a bit to, and I show it to my clients quite a lot. It's what you classify as success. And Jenny said right in the beginning, success is whatever you really want it to be, which is very true. Okay? And these are many of the success drivers. So, for example, if we were to take praise, if someone praises you, then you feel you've been successful. Yeah? If you've gone out and set up 2 businesses, you're building an empire, and if you've done that, you feel kind of good. That's a success. Okay? A lot of people concentrate on those. Now, if I was to ask you, there's one actually missing from here, so you might be able to find it, and if you do, that's good. But if I was to ask you what your top 3 would be out of that list, and if you can find the missing one, what that would be. Can I pick on someone? Or would someone like to volunteer what their 3? Yes. Sorry, your name?
Terry.
Terry. Yes, Terry. What would your 3 be?
My success driver would be number 5.
Satisfaction of a job well done.
And the one's missing as well.
Yes.
Because I don't have money.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Wealth is actually in my terms it says money, but wealth is the same thing. Yeah. All right. When I do this, when I sit down with clients, and I normally do this as a business strategy session, if money is not in your top 3 as a success driver, the chances are you're not going to make as much money as you could. And it's absolutely true because it happened in my life. Okay, and what actually happened was in 2006 when I was in the UK, I was actually making bundles of cash. Literally bundles of cash. I was making a lot of money. And then something happened, and I won't go into what happened, but something happened, it messed around with my brain, and I kind of went off the money and I went into this, how can I call it, a spiritual hippie world. So imagine an Indian hippie without the tattoos and piercings, and that's what you get. But basically what happened was I went into this spiritual world, right? All these pens aren't working. Yeah. So I went into this spiritual world, right? And it was great. I loved that life. Because it was great, because it was all about family and all the things that I wanted to do, and it was great. The only problem was money was no longer in my success driver. So I wasn't making as much money. So after about a couple of years, I kind of worked out that if I kept living that lifestyle, because my lifestyle didn't change, then in about 10 years' time, I was going to actually physically run out of money. So I had to bring it back. And what it did was, I went from this money world to this spiritual world. And this didn't work, and that didn't work. So what I ended up having to do was, I realized that I had to live in both those worlds, and I had to oscillate between the 2. Okay? There is nothing to say that you can't live in a spiritual world and make money. And you can live in a money world and still be spiritual. But people think you have to be one or the other. You don't. You can do what you want. But don't forget that the money is important, because at the end of the day, it's what keeps you alive, it keeps you going, and it keeps you happy, and it allows you to do all this spiritual stuff as well. Okay? So put money in your top 3. All right? And it will make a huge difference. Okay. I'm not going to go into specific figures. I think that's part of the program that Jenny will do later on. But when I start off with people and say, what should you look at when you're looking at figures? Well, there's 3 parts really: profit and loss, balance sheet, and a cash flow. So profit and loss is all your income minus your expenses. If it's positive, you're making profit, which is good. If it's negative, you're making a loss, which is not so good. Your balance sheet is what you owe. If you own a car or cash, debtors, that sort of stuff, minus all your liabilities, people you owe money to, that sort of thing. And then finally, cash flow. What is your cash position and where are you going to be going forward? And I often get the question, which is the most important out of the three? And most people think I'm going to say profit and loss, but I don't. It's cash. Okay? Because cash is king. All right? And the way that I'll explain it is, if my business made a loss this month, I'd probably be all right. If my business made a loss next month, I'd probably still be all right. If at the end of the year or for 12 months I make a loss, I'll probably be okay, but it will start pinching me, right? So it's like cancer. It will spread, but it won't. It takes time to actually make a major effect. If you run out of cash, it's like having a major heart attack. You could be all over, literally the next day. Okay? So when I look at my figures, I actually look at my cash balances daily. Every single day I look at my cash balances, okay? Whereas I look at my P&L and all of that weekly. All right, and it makes a huge difference. Okay, so kind of a little summary, I guess. Don't be afraid of making money, and don't be afraid of telling people you make money. All right, get it into your system that it's okay. All right, we have this poppy syndrome in Australia where everyone's got to be struggling and not make money. Get it out of your system, all right? You're not a charity, so don't act like one, okay? I see many businesses that become charities. They kind of, this person needs help, I really need to help them. And yes, that's a nice place to be, but you know what? When you really need help, the chances are they might not be willing to do the same thing for you, okay? If you want to be a charity, set up a charity. You'll be more fulfilled, okay? All right? Get in the habit of saying no. Some business to take on is just not worth it, so don't do it. We have a very clear category of what kind of client we want and who we will take on, so we don't do that, all right? And the final one's going to confuse you totally, because I've been talking about money for the last 10 minutes, and now I'm going to tell you don't just chase the money. And it actually comes back to Jenny's why when she asked the question, what's your why? Okay? If you just go chasing the money, you'll be fine, but you are not going to be fulfilled. If you can chase the money with a why, it's going to be a lot more fulfilling. Okay, so for me, I know I'm going into businesses and I'm changing the business owner and their family lives. So last week I was told by one of my clients' wife that I probably saved their marriage. Now that's pretty cool, isn't it, for an accountant? Yeah? Well, that's pretty cool for me, and that made me feel really good. And I made money out of it. So, I mean, it's win-win, right? Okay? So for me to go in and change lives is a big thing. And that's my success drive. Right? Okay. So can I give you a story? Yeah? Okay. So this is what something can do to your business if you look at your figures. It's a 108-year-old Queensland business, one of the first probably ever to be set up in Queensland. Okay, if you go in there, they've got pictures of the original directors and that sort of stuff. It's really quite interesting. But they had declining sales, real cash flow problems. They had an in-house accounts department, which meant all their figures were up to date. It wasn't as if they were in a mess or anything like that. They had up-to-date figures, but no one was looking at them. Okay? And when I went in there and I looked at it and I said, this business is insolvent. It literally is insolvent. We've got to do something. We've got to do something now. So the review of those figures told us there was a serious cost issue. Okay? What was actually happening was his sales was going down, his costs were going down, but they weren't going down in the same way. So we had serious cost problems. And all I did was get the owner to concentrate on profit and specifically cash flow, to such an extent that if now, when he emails me or even we speak on the phone, the first thing he does is updates me on his cash flow position. Okay? So it's really drilled into him. All right? And we realized there was a restructure needed, so we restructured the business. 6 months later now, costs are under control. Business is still not profitable, or not really profitable, but it will probably survive. And that is a difference that can happen in your business. Okay, so if you are kind of struggling, what happens when you struggle? You kind of ignore everything, you bury your head in the sand. It doesn't really work. Get someone to look at it. All right, so that was my thing for today. It was a pretty basic understanding of figures, and I'm sure when the real thing happens with Jenny, it will be a lot more informative. Thank you.